Hey, nice to meet you, Gavin.
Nice to meet you, Mercury.
And fuck yeah, I feel like giving the heads up. I'm depressed at the moment and shit. Like, and it's cool. I'm ready to be present in the conversation. I'm ready to give my full attention, but I don't want you to misinterpret my body language as me not liking you or something. Or fuck yeah, at some point, if my brain might seize up, like I'm in a depressed state, my brain's far from optimal, but I'm happy to meet you. And I just kind of, yeah, wanted to give you that heads up.
Yeah, I feel like doing a similar type of heads up that like I want to be able to frame the conversation. I was listening to some of these videos. I asked both of you some videos I could watch, and Grim had recommended one of them was Pajot, and he had talked about framing the conversation, or he talked about the divine feminine. And so to frame the conversation, um, we're humans, like we're not perfect, we make mistakes. And if I say anything um, that anyone who hears it, if they think there's a problem or there's an error, I welcome feedback. I welcome criticism. So,
And our
Well,
sort
wait,
of
wait,
thing,
wait.
the
Since
channel. Sorry, go ahead.
this on, okay. We're getting disclaimers out the way. I guess it's been recording since we got here.
yeah,
I'd like to make one. I'm a weirdo on the internet, and if you listen to anything I say, that's I hope you have the adult discernment to decide for yourself what if you want to attach to those things. It's not with my own recommendation that you do so. So there's the disclaimer from me.
Yeah, and then I guess from the channel, both for Gavin or just in case there's anyone new watching this, the idea behind the channel is this is a place where we talk about sort of the sorting ourselves out, what works for us, and bridges. So it's about sharing our experiences. And then even if we have different worldviews, this isn't the debate field. This isn't the argument field where I enjoy finding common ground, and working together where we can find common ground, and where we differ, I prefer to learn how to live together is like the energy of here. This isn't the battlefield in any culture war. This is Doctors Without Borders for everyone who wants to kind of
yeah,
operate from that place.
yeah. That's kind of a libertarian view, in my opinion. It's the view where um, you can have different worldviews. It's like a meta view where you allow people to have different worldviews so long as they're not causing harm to each other. I like that perspective, and it's different than the perspective where you're trying to force other people to convert to your view, and it's a big problem in the world.
And the reason I come to it isn't even from that logical or philosophical. It's like I'm a crazy fucking magician, and for me it comes from the mystical. Like the reason I took the name Mercury as my magical name is Mercury's the herald. Mercury does not it's not about battle, and the symbol of the caduceus is like nothing does war against the caduceus. And I like that idea of like often in stories you get that bar where it's like, yeah, my magical thing is about opening the space again, like Mercury, where it's like you set the weapons aside before you enter that bar, and inside there's a non-aggression pact of everyone present that we're here to work things out.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm not getting a good example of it in fiction, like coming to mind, even though I know it comes up often. But I think you get the point.
It's like in Highlander, where you're supposed to be cutting the other guy's head off, but there's this one spot called holy ground where you don't get to do it. You have to take it. That's where you can have conversations and not cut each other's heads off.
Exactly.
That's what we aim for as far as
like a sacred space.
Yeah,
but we can have sweet dialogos. So
you guys use words that I'm not used to.
That's from the people we watch around here.
Well, even the word herald and caduceus, and
Oh yeah, those ones. Those are fun ones too.
I can guess at the meaning, what you mean by these words.
Sort of that idea of the messenger is about, like, even in a time of war, the herald is like a messenger. Like the messenger's staff is you don't kill the messenger, even if it's your enemy's messenger. It's you have to allow the messengers to pass, or there can't be peace. Or I guess it's kind of similar to the idea of the native concept of the peace belt, like someone who declares that they're a non-combatant and who lives in peace. Like you live peacefully, and therefore
Press pass almost.
What was that?
Ancient forms of the press pass.
Yeah,
that's the guy with the news. Don't kill him.
Or like the idea of the medic and Doctors Without Borders as well. We have certain positions that even combatants consider, or like Grizz pointed out, there's always holy ground with respectable conflicts that's left alone. It's like, because I'm a total hermit from the world. I live in my own little space, and that's where all that nonsense comes from.
Well, I think it's important, and I think it's valuable, because I think that conflict arises out of an inability to communicate. That's like the source of conflict. And even one of my first thoughts about what is sin was that sin is ignorance. So that's linked in there in a failure to communicate and ignoring other people's perspectives. So I think conflict really emerges out of that inability to communicate. And so having a space for people to have conversations and to learn how to disagree with each other in a peaceful way, it's very important. It's something that's missing in our society. And I'd like to see more people learn how to do it.
I like that. It's for me, conflict is still communication. It's just the only way you can still talk when you won't let me use my words. So yes, that's good. This conversation happened because I have spies on Paul Vanderklay's Discord, and they came to me with like, you were poking around and you had this looking for group thing, which I thought was like, I don't understand why we haven't pulled that I don't know, that term and usage outside of games sooner. And I saw somebody else doing it, so that was nice. What do you have going on with that? What's that all about? Where did that start with?
And sorry, Grizz, I missed what you said that the game term he used was.
Looking for group.
Looking for group?
Yeah,
like if you're if you're all playing the same game, but like you don't know anybody, you indicate that you're looking to group up for a big quest that a person can't do on their own.
Oh, okay.
So it's like you flag yourself as, hey, I'm looking for group, and then like 5 people that are looking for group find each other and wander off. As far as that's the term as I know it from gaming.
By the way, Grizz, you're really
using it out in the human world here somehow.
You're really good at explaining stuff. I enjoy. I think Paul Vanderklay had kind of he had acknowledged how good you are with words as well. So I agree. But yeah, so I was playing World of Warcraft a good bit of my life, and it was never satisfying playing World of Warcraft. There was something missing, and I felt like it would be nice to build up your real life character, level up your real life character, get your items. And at some point, I learned a bunch of things, but one of the things I learned is that, I really could use some help, right? That you can do more with a team than you can do by yourself. And so the looking for group part is just an acknowledgement that I can do more with the help of other people than I can do by myself. It's also an acknowledgement of the people who have helped me in the past as well. But I created an LLC. I have a Hero LFG LLC. Tried to start my own business at some point. And it was always a debate on whether it should be a for-profit or a nonprofit. But that was in 2014, I think. So sometimes I tell stories backwards, but the thing that came before Hero LFG was I was working with missile defense for 6 years. And so I shared NACO and medicine for the people with y'all. And that music and getting into that music, it kind of encouraged me to leave the world of the military industrial complex and try to start my own business. And there was a lot of things going on. I kind of, even the word hero is before looking for group. There's an aspect of some bits of delusion that I have as well.
I will say that is kind of flagging yourself for PvP, right?
So yeah, I mean, I went through that stage where, I'm wondering if anybody is watching me. I went through that kind of delusional paranoia stage, and at some point I started thinking, well, why can't there be good guys? Like, why can't the people who are looking for the bad guys, why aren't they looking for the good guys? Or
it sounds like truther stuff.
I've got into some truther stuff in the past. I would say I got into truther stuff through the Zeitgeist movement. I got involved with that quite a bit out of college. So while I'm working on software for missile defense, I'm also engaged on the Zeitgeist movement forums. I'm actually trying to recover the old database because I created so much content there that I just want to be able to access my old content, at least crawl it. And, I'll try to respect people's, other people's content. I don't want to just dump it on the internet, but I'm interested in recovering some of the stuff I wrote.
That's the feels of when you discover what digital sharecropping means.
Digital sharecropping.
I had a very similar thing with Google Plus in the years I was on that before they decided, okay, that don't exist anymore. So yeah, we generate a lot of content for platforms that may or may not decide to do anything with it, and may or may not decide to limit our future access to it.
Yeah, I just want to be kind of open with you guys about who I am and try to give you a glimpse of who I am. I created notes. I created over like 2,000 words of notes, and that's been edited. So there's all kinds of things we could talk about, but I need to listen. So.
Well, I'm interested in the angle that you said you went ahead and made an LLC, because for me, as somebody who's coming in from there's got to be something other than working for an owner. There's got to be ways other than working for an owner to get by. And what you did was teach yourself a skill set or learn a skill set for how to turn yourself into a company or an adventuring company, as the case may be. And that's actually something we're trying to work on for the channel for the same reason. It's
right.
Once you get to a certain seriousness about the game or being involved as an entity, then you have to incorporate that entity onto the playing field of the suable legal system, I suppose.
I think this is where Jordan Peterson comes to mind, and the competence hierarchy. So, getting into, so I was trying to start my own business before I had heard about Jordan Peterson, and some people would say that according to my opinion, it did not succeed. I have delusions of grandeur. It did not succeed in my opinion, but if I speak to other people, they say, well, you did a pretty good job. But there's the idea of the competence hierarchy is important to think about and to talk about. And that my goal was that I would discover how to run a business and I would discover the processes for hiring, firing, promoting, demoting, try to understand how to create an organization where I can actually be selective in who I brought in. And I would try to create the best company possible, because it seems like a place where you could run that experiment. And it's not easy. And it is, my theory is that it is, I would claim that it is one of the most important problems in our world. I call it the human resource problem, and other people have other phrases and words to describe a similar problem. But the idea is that if we could learn how to hire, fire, promote, demote, for example, I've watched some of your videos, and there's different people who are looking for purpose and meaning. It's like, if we could actually figure out how to, if we could find the job for each person that matches their strengths and their weaknesses, their goals, so that they can have meaning in their life, and organize that into something like very beautiful, that is solving some important problems, adding value to people's life. That would be, to me, that's the ultimate goal, is peace on earth. But you could start with a goal like, let's just try to make sure everybody has clean water, which isn't necessarily going to be profitable. So there's a lot of problems to solve in trying to accomplish those kinds of goals.
Yeah, and I'm impressed with your knowledge in those fields, because I just, like, that's all completely beyond my ability. Like, I feel like often certain people, I think, get a warped view of me because I suppose, like, I'm good at being present with people. I'm good at having these conversations. I'm good at weird, mystical, crazy shit. But I barely function as a human being. Like, I'm a burden on the state. My parents, like, I can't leave my house without stressing out. So it's like, when it comes to real world shit like that, I'm just completely helpless. It's like, I'm like a creature that has to be in its own environment and can only do this very limited thing. So
I felt like it's like, I have some skill sets. I have some skills. One of them is my imagination. And so I think that each individual situation, including your own, is you can use your imagination in order to imagine new ways to add value. Jordan Peterson says clean your room, but you can do more than clean your room. There's an infinite number of things you can be doing, and for me, it's a matter of asking the question, what can I be doing with my time? And part of the answer to that, there are some of the answers that I like, is what you're doing. You're trying to create a space for people to have conversations, and even have disagreements, and have empathy for other people who have different worldviews, so that there can be a education. So in general, to me, that's education. An education system is necessary, and you are a part of that. And I think there's always a way to improve what we do in order to improve that education system. And part of that is learning how to work on a team. So there's what you can do as an individual, and there's what you can do as a team. And I really feel like there's an amazing opportunity for people in our society right now to use technology to do things that have never been done before. And that's why I do have a lot of hope.
Yes, I agree that I also see that potential. I have no idea about how to make use of it, but I agree with you that potential's there. And in fact, I find more and more, it's like the world used to be more of a problem for humans. Like at one point, like Peterson says, there was that cat with the special tooth that fit into the back of our skull. It's like once we were really at the mercy of weather and plagues, and it was hard to find food, and animals were eating us. But we've tamed the earth to such a degree, and technology's given us so much ability that really at the moment we're our own fucking problem. Like, we've got plenty of food, we've got plenty of shelter, we don't know how to distribute it. We're Like our threat is no longer tigers or it's all each other. Like literally we kill each other more than it's just, we largely are our own problem now. It's that idea of we're really beginning to access the power of gods. And
Right.
yet we don't have the wisdom of gods. So we're becoming our own worst problem. I think if we could access deep wisdom and work together, like collectively as a humanity, we would be able to solve all of this shit. It's our own nature that we're wrestling with, not a lack of technology. It's that line of good and evil down the middle of us.
So yeah, I agree that I started off by trying to frame this conversation in a way where I say, I'm a human, I'm not perfect. I could quote a few different people, but it's important. I believe it's important to make it very clear, and also don't just say it, but try to do things to allow for people to provide feedback to you. So I see a lot of people trying to search for the truth, trying to do things on their own, and they aren't necessarily providing any way for other people to help. So that's one thing that's the reason I joined I had subscribed to Paul Vanderklay years ago. I'm not actually someone who listens to everything he puts out, but I just happened to click on one because the title was interesting, and I look at the description, I look at the comments, and I see a Discord link, and I'm impressed because that is, so it's not that we definitely have a problem as humans. There's our human nature, but also there are tools that can be created that haven't been created yet, and there are tools that have already been created that we have to learn how to use. And Discord is an example, and that's why I was like, well, I need to click on this link. I need to check out this community. Paul Vanderklay and some people in that community are trying. They're on to, this idea of using the tools that are available to help solve one of the most important problems in the world. So, and you guys have a Discord channel as well. I think this is very important. It doesn't necessarily need to be Discord for the reasons that I mentioned with regard to the zeitgeist.
We don't speak about those reasons yet.
Well,
it's not this layer of communication, but yes, there are reasons.
So, I mean, and that's where I'm a software engineer ultimately. Like, if we talk about strengths and weaknesses, there's things that I would call myself an expert. One of the technologies that I think is pretty cool is something called the Fediverse. And I created there's open source software for being able to host your own version of Twitter. And it can be interconnected with other people who are hosting the same software on their computers. So there are these technologies to allow for, owning your own data, owning your own algorithms. And it's easy to do for people like me. And there are millions of people out there like me. I believe that.
Yeah, you did say you wanted to craft yourself as open for feedback and yada yada. So I'm gonna nail you with some. That part way back when you're talking about how you're like, I want to set up my business and get to pick who comes on board. What seems to be actually happens when you get into a position where you might be able to do things is like you get who shows up and maybe them for 20 minutes while they're still interested. So I think you just modeled for the wrong system, and you should make the adjustments to that fact. We can get somewhere. To me, like you mentioned the competence hierarchies, I think the awareness of that is lacking. You mentioned you were familiar with Zeitgeist, and like the one piece of that film that I can't forget is the clip where they talk about when the telegraph came out and how that changed everything. And it's the same way as like when the printing press came out. And like we're like, what, 2 decades deep into the mother of that notion, and we have yet to come up with the proper ways to process the information. Like, everybody in that Discord has a different truth because the repeaters aren't cleaning up that information. So, like, the information processing, the awareness of existing and potential competence hierarchies. Like, there's people that don't know that they have the skill sets that line up perfectly with a need in our experiments, but there's no vision, no between. That's the layer that's forming right now on these Discords to me, is like the collaborative substructure that's between a show and the audience that's starting to but like, to me, the important things to focus on are what competence hierarchies are necessary and the skill sets that we need to feed them. And because, like, if you're a person who's listening to podcasts who feels motivated to get involved and help somehow, the people who are looking for that, need to be able to show you what's needed. And that's where I'm at as far as I'm aiming, and where what you said aligns with it. And I don't know if that made any sense to anyone, but that's kind of what I do.
So you are recruiting. Are you a recruiter?
I'm hoping that I can point and somebody sees where I'm pointing, but is more competent and takes over and shows. I'm seeing potentials and looking for people who also see potentials and what can happen. I'm not competent enough with my own life to be recruiting people underneath exactly. I just,
So
and for me, it's like, I don't really have a plan. Like, do you know how I got involved in the channel?
So yeah, my understanding is that there was an original owner who the channel became popular based off of Jordan Peterson clips, and at some point the owner of the channel wanted to hand off kind of ownership or management of the channel to someone else, and you may have been the second person after that, either the first or the second.
That he handed it over to me and Ryan Holsapple together.
Right, and that's really cool for that idea of someone having a channel with a lot of reach, trying to allow anyone to come in and I wouldn't say anyone, but that's an opportunity to be able to recruit someone into a position of influence. It's something kind of new. I'm not aware that any other channel has done this.
Yeah, it's weird, and I kind of fell into it like by accident, and then Ryan had, like, he was the one with the business mind and like all the vision for everything. And I felt like I was like the sideshow to the circus. I didn't need to worry about business or direction. It's like I just did my live streams, would just talk to people and would completely not think about the networking, the Discord, any of that. But then he resigned at the beginning of summer, roughly. And at that point, I was like kind of forced to recruit help because I can barely use my computer. I'm not the person to think about Discord or all this networking stuff. It's like, I can be the weird fucking lunatic mystic who opens this, like, my expertise is in dealing with fucking either alternate dimensions or delusions. It's just, my skill set is none of this at all. So a few people have been scrambling to try to make the channel into something, but at the moment we're really just floundering. Well, it depends how you want to judge the channel. We've done a shitty job of losing views. If you're going by views, like, we've done a shitty job of it. If you're going by generating revenue, we've done a really shitty job of it. Nobody's making any money. But if the goal is, because I got into it not with those as goals. My goal was always just to try to offer some help in my own pathetic way. And so it's like, people are telling me some people are being helped by what we're doing. And so if you set the standard at giving some amount of help, no matter how pathetic, then hey, we're doing that. But if you're talking about networking, changing the world, bringing on volunteers, building something, big, then we haven't learned to do it yet.
It's not going to be easy to learn. And I don't think anyone knows how to do it. And it's might be the most important problem to solve. But I wouldn't cut yourself short. Also, being a mystic and delusional, that kind of stuff interests me. The conspiracy theory stuff can interest me as well. It's not the things that interest me the most, but the things that interest me the most might not, I suspect, don't interest most people. So if you're talking about getting views and if you're talking about making money, then it's not necessarily, there's a certain kind of content and a certain strategies that would help you do that. But what you have is a platform and you have a certain amount of reach. And, I got to watch the video with Nolan. And I've heard that you've had private conversations with people. And I've heard that Grim feels good about helping a channel that is, and I think you just said it as well, helping to provide this channel, this platform for people who are benefiting from it. That's awesome. And for me, I see your channel as a way to just kind of amplify my ideas, because I think there are people like me who can solve hard problems. They want to solve hard problems, and they're sitting on the corner of the internet. I've got one YouTube channel that's got 25 subscribers, and I've created another one that has 3 subscribers. And then so this video could have 100, 200, 300 views. It's there's no way my ideas are going to reach that amount of people on my own YouTube channel. And so there's a networking kind of task going on, whether it's people who need help, where you have private conversations with them, or maybe they are publicly sharing their story as they sort themselves out, or I should say, as we sort ourselves out. I still have my work to do. And then I think there's people out there like me who, at least, and we might be plagued by delusions of grandeur, but we believe that we can actually help solve some of these problems that exist in the world, and it doesn't seem like the people who have influence are actually trying to solve the problems. So I believe there are people who can solve the problems. There are problems that are solvable, and the solutions are not even being discussed, and there's no outlet for people with solutions to actually connect and do that networking. So if I try to connect with people who have a problem, I actually get no response. So if you ever see a problem on the internet, like something bad has happened, if you can find the hero who wants to go in and solve the problem, who wants to work, who wants to volunteer, most of the time, I've run the experiment, most of the time, you will find that they don't have anything for you to do. You won't even get a response, because they're actually in this game of making money, and just trying to get your attention, and they're not actually telling the truth and being honest. So there's not a lot of opportunities for people who want to be a hero. That's my perspective.
No, I think there are. I think we are flush in opportunities, but there is the blindness, the being able to connect the people to the problem. It's there, but I think you're wrong on there aren't opportunities. I think it's just a matter of connection. I just want to throw that.
Yeah, I am glad to be here speaking with you. But according to the past, I've been trying to do a kind of heroic activism for years. So, and maybe it's just my strategy has been flawed. But yeah, I'm glad to be here talking with you guys.
I mean, yes, it's very discouraging for a long time before anything even glimmers to happen. But I think your previous experience may be inadequate. And I also think, and I'm just a crazy internet person, like not as crazy, but kind of crazy. I think it's not necessarily a matter of delusions of grandeur. It's that we live in a society under a mass spell of delusions of inadequacy. Inadequacy.
That's yeah, there
I have
are
all of those delusions. I have delusions of grandeur, delusions that I'm a pathetic thing that should kill myself. Like I've got an internal messiah complex. I've got the reverse. I've got an internal fucking Satan. I'm a whole mess of all kinds of delusions. I've just learned to step back and witness all of that and realize I'm not any one of this shit. I'm like, I'm trying to hold on to that higher perspective and manage this whole fucking circus inside myself.
Yeah, that mental health, it's a mental health kind of concern that I think everyone struggles with to various degrees. But you say being able to step back, a way I imagine it is being able to turn off my brain, to stop the thinking. So I know that might be different than what you do. But also think
I don't stop the thinking. I what's the way to describe this?
Can you stop the thinking?
Vervaeke do the experiment like with a cup and a pencil?
I've heard the name, but I have not heard any Vervaeke. I've not.
Like this is a really simple experiment that I think, and I forget how he was even referencing it, but like, do you have a cup or any object and a pencil with you at the moment?
I have some cups. I have a straw in this cup.
Like the idea is just to have a probe. Like that's what the pencil is. So imagine the cigarette was a pencil. The idea is to have a probe and just an object that you can tap with it.
Right. I have it.
Okay. So
all right, hold on. This is getting freaky. I'm gonna go to the shed. I'll be back, guys.
Okay. So like close your eyes and tap the object like a blind person would use a cane.
Right.
To find the shape of the object.
Right.
Do that for a moment.
I already had some clues with my eyes though, so it's like cheating.
Yeah. Now, instead of paying attention to what you're tapping, pay attention to the feeling of the straw in your finger.
Right.
And do you notice how before you were looking through the pencil at the object, but then you can draw your mind back and look through your hand at the pencil.
Right.
But then you can also move back one further meditative step.
Right.
And you can actually pay attention to the muscles in your hand instead of the feeling of the straw. And so for me, it's about if I'm caught up in a thought, whether it's a messianic complex or the suicidal self. And this is the way I was before I went insane. It's like, I thought I was my thoughts. I thought I was my emotions. So it's like, I am in like when I was totally psychotic in a mental institution, at that point, I was in my messianic complex looking at the world.
Mm-hmm.
But the same way that you can draw back to look at the pencil instead of looking through it, I could step back now. And this is after years of mindfulness meditation and shit. I've learned to step back and instead of looking through each subpersonality or each delusion at the world, I look at the actual delusion itself.
Right.
I find the part of me that's behind it. And so it's about being present. Like, and yes, meditation can slow. I have had like the experience of meditating into a time of no thought. But what's more important to me is the kind of meditation where I allow things to arise in me naturally without judgment. And I observe and I expand my consciousness by paying more and more attention to what's going on in me, but looking at it, not looking through it. Does that make sense?
Yes, this makes sense. Um, what you're saying reminds me of Muji, Mooji on the internet. I've listened to some Muji. He's talking about the observer and what is observing the observer. It's a similar kind of practice.
I haven't heard much of Muji, but the little bits I've heard, I always thought were fantastic. So I don't know his stuff, but yeah.
I've definitely listened to him, and I've been guided to that state, or at least it seemed like. So it's but yeah, so yeah, that's a technique. It's a tool that allows you to deal with thoughts that emerge, so that you're not controlled by your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. So it is a mind control technique. I would say it allows for critical thinking, right? So you can actually step outside of a thought and analyze it from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. And I find, especially if you mix it in with when I'm manic, because when I'm manic, I can have two trains of thought in this really weird way. And actually, when it gets out of control, there'll get to be even more. But it's amazing how, if you really meditate, not only can you step back and observe one idea, you can also observe its polar opposite. Like, that idea that any truth that can be put into words is but half a truth, and there's kind of paradoxical elements to the universe. It's like, I find I can make big enough spaces it's like Peterson says, you almost want to have an argument with yourself. So I can make a big enough space to allow that atheist part of me to have its perspective, and I'm not drawn into it. And I can allow the mystic part of me that feels a connection to God to be present at the same time within me.
Right.
Not to be controlled by either of them, to then decide, kind of that idea of deciding then which wolf you want to feed inside.
I think that's very important. It's very powerful. You can, I know that other people's thoughts can, their words, their phrases, they can enter into my mind and kind of take hold. And if I don't do that practice of stepping back and observing and thinking critically, then it has an impact in my life. And sometimes it helps to have other people's perspectives, so that, and I have to be willing to listen to their perspectives, so that I haven't let that thought or idea, I have the ability to step back and analyze my thoughts and my beliefs. I have the ability to not believe. I've developed that skill. And so I don't always practice that skill, but I can do it. I can do it when I need to. So if people give me criticism, they criticize my ideas. If they say I'm making a mistake, it might be hard sometimes, but I can try my best to understand the criticism in order to overcome my bias as much as possible, so that I can have that opportunity to learn and to not, for example, be controlled by someone else's thoughts and ideas. Like mind control is really important. I think a lot of that is going on. There's a lot of people having their minds controlled by other people's thoughts and ideas. So it's important So from your perspective, it's like you have this, you call it, bipolar, with mania and depression. I would say there is something to me similar about an ability to kind of observe those thoughts from afar. There's something similar to that, and the person who's watching television or CNN or Fox News or anything, it's like it's a valuable skill to be able to think critically about the words and phrases that other people are, the content that other people are, or the content you are consuming in general. You need to think critically about it.
And as I explored like the occult and the mystical and magic and shit like that, and I've had some really strange experiences. Like there's some depth to the levels. One thing it made me really profoundly realize was how much all art is fucking magical. Language, all language is fucking magical. More important than any like accessing higher levels of magic is to apply the same moral concern you would over the very act of conversation. It was the one thing I really liked about Peterson was the, you know, the tell the truth shit and the be precise in your speech, because, and this was one thing that being alone for a couple years where it was like 99, I got supplies dropped off. I didn't see people. Like in real isolation, I really realized how much you can't be around someone else without them having a certain amount of mind control over you. Like, unless you're alone or a highly controlled like guru that you can control your attention, if someone speaks, you can't help but hear them. If I say purple elephant with a stupid green hat, like you guys couldn't help it. That was mind control. I put that in your fucking heads. And I love Peterson's idea of we need to be more careful how we speak. I think there's something really deep to every thought is a prayer. Like God hears everything, and everything you say is a spell. So I try my best to, with my attention, with my conversation and everything, to be on the side of good with everything I say.
Yeah, it's something I recently
I like to
taught my
aim
son
there
was,
myself, but like there was this guy on Twitter who said that I use words like prostitute uses wet wipes. And I feel really proud of, like there's part of me that that phrase makes shine. That, and I don't, so like while I also respect the truth and precision of speech, there's part of me that is just, I want to do horrible. I want to use words like ven and turn it into a verb. It's like, where those things ven, you know? And I don't know what that means for precision of speech or those sorts of things. But
I was going to use a
where
word.
I'm at.
I taught my son to respect your orifices. My father used to use that word as well. But like all the orifices you need to be very respectful of them. But yeah, so the words coming out of your mouth, whatever's going in your ear, you know, you have to be very careful. Whatever's going through the eyes. Sometimes I have to actually close my eyes in order to listen better.
And when it comes to be precise in your speech, that's one I'd love to be able to do. I can't do that at all. So I do it differently. Like because my ideas are so weird, I don't know how to present them. Rather than being precise in my speech, I'm careful about what part of myself I'm speaking from. Is this a good thing to try to represent? And then I just do my best to represent it. I throw something out there. If that's not working, I try something else. Does that make sense? So rather than being precise in my speech, I'm careful about what it is I'm trying to present, and I'm trying to speak from the better part of me.
So you're being intentional. I guess, Grim, you were speaking toward using your words maybe for some type of a comedic purpose or some type of like creative purpose. Maybe like you can have different intents whenever you use words, and you had talked about.
Yeah, I like to go from like where Burke's saying he comes from the better part. Like to use some discernment. Is it like, before I drop it out there? Me, it's like the most important thing is that's actually what I'm saying it, because it's coming from a place where no, I just like if it lands well, really. If it earns attention, and yes, I'm
Well, that's somewhere where you're giving your power over to the audience then. If the driving force of what you're going to say is if it earns attention, then you're at the mercy of the crowd. Because if everyone looks away when you say something good, but then when you say something racist, everyone pays attention. It's like, that's a dangerous, there's giving power to other people there, which is why I try to detach myself from the part that likes praise too much. And I try to keep I try not to speak for praise, because that's great if you're around wise people.
You can't trust their feedback anyway, so you can't really listen to praise. But like the thing with a good joke is like it's a grenade, you know, because you lay out all these different words and then you watch in their head it all snaps into place, and then their face lights up as it, and that's the draw, not necessarily attention, but like that you can do that with attention. It might be more of a power trip.
By light up, do you mean with joy?
Yes, because their mind makes the connection and it tickles them.
Trying to spread joy sounds better than I'm doing it for attention, because attention doesn't differentiate what kind.
Well, I have multiple purposes deep down, but this is not real. I didn't mean to. This precision of speech thing, I actually wrestle with this stuff sometimes, and so I would just
have some quotes.
Derailed this. I apologize.
I have some quotes of Grimm's that I liked. I really liked, well, I'll talk about the ideas. I don't have the quotes, but I really liked whenever you had suggested paintball in churches to Paul Vanderklay. I actually had a dream where I was in a church and they were playing paintball and they had rock climbing walls, and there was, there's people singing. That's one of the things I liked about church, the singing. But yeah, paintball and rock climbing, but nobody wants to do that. I actually tried to get in touch with a church down the street when they were building the church. I was like, so what about a rock climbing wall?
It's a matter of approach. And like every time I tell the deepest truth I can, people laugh because apparently it's hilarious when I do that. But
that's great. That's like the Joker. If you're talking about archetypes, it's that Joker kind of full archetype that actually sees the things that everyone else is blind to, and it just seems absurd, but it might be really good.
But it's like paintball for Jesus is real. Your children are being sucked into VR helmet worlds. You need to do everything you can to get them in their body. And like, if that experience is offered to people living clean, then there's more reason to live clean. Why? Because I have to do well in paintball for Jesus. So I'm very serious about these things.
Paintball for Jesus is a great idea. Now, it's not something, I'm not an active person. I don't go out in the world. Like, I won't be playing, but I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think
you could stream it.
Another one you said, Grim, you had said that the first church you went to was like a waiting room or something for people who are on their way out. And so, yeah, I've had that kind of feeling that sometimes, or maybe even often, the church is a place for, the old and the sick. It's not necessarily a place for the young people who are just trying to have fun, or at least trying to have fun while they learn. So yeah, the church, they could definitely make it more fun. And you had talked about like ancillary benefits of, well, they'd also be maybe prepared for a future where they might need
a more serious world than we've grown up in. Yes, I think that would be good preparation. But
yeah.
The only problem I see with your paintball for Jesus idea is that everyone we know is scattered everywhere. Like that, it's just kind of hard to do because I don't think your guns will reach Pat. And so that's one barrier. Fuck yeah. So that becomes something where it's like, it'd have to be your local church. I don't see how me and Gavin, like, you couldn't participate in that. Cause also, like, I think it would be wonderful if, because I don't know if you know, Gavin, aside from like that I do personal sessions, we also do a thing called Lunatic Patrol, where we all get together and hang out in like a group Zoom call. Those have never been recorded or posted.
Cool.
Like that goes really well, like the community aspect. It's like that would be so much more powerful if we could all sit around a campfire. But it's like everyone's so spread out that I don't know how the three of us, like, it would be great if we could do that kind of embodied in-person thing, but we're all over the place and I don't travel.
Well, I got
Right.
that's where like the mindless delusion of grandeur hope of the channel is because like every time we make a video, we're rolling a die who of the 7 billion people on the planet might come across it and win. And like we don't know that some bored person with land who's like, I always wanted to make this into a paintball field, and now I can see I can do it for Jesus. Boy, am I glad I saw that video. So there's like that. We don't know what can happen
like if
random conversation on the internet anymore. And
whether
that
it was
is the one beauty of the time we live in, is we have no idea where things can go and how fast. And I mean that. I don't know. There's a little hope, right? We got that chipmunk video in the works. That could be what brings everything to light.
I saw that video.
Yeah, it was inspiring. Up, society. Up.
And I have fucking tons of videos of me with chipmunks and groundhogs that we just haven't gotten around to uploading. So, like, on the delusional level of hope, it's like, yeah, there's a small chance that either sorting myself out or something in my life miraculous could happen where suddenly I'd have a bunch of money. If I had the money to do it, I would totally, like, if I could buy this farm, I would put up some cabins. I would get to know the wildlife like deeper in the forest the way I did in the yard. And I'd love to have a little retreat where people could do this in person. But
I think that's part of the hope we see with like I'm picking up Gavin saw and that I saw, like, even when I talked you into Ryan and started the Discord, was that like there's a lot of people who think a lot of the same ways, who feel like there's nobody else that thinks that way. And I think this Discord layer is, especially now that they've locked everybody in their cells, is where that's playing out and where things like that can grow and sprout. And I don't know, there's, like I said, that's my sliver of hope these days.
I kind of look at networking and communities online as kind of an opportunity for a future where you would want to meet up. So, for example, you don't necessarily need to be meeting up in person, periodically, like regularly. You don't have to do that. But if you are concerned that something bad is going to happen, the idea is that, so that I'd said, a team can do more than an individual. So the idea is that you would try to create a team online, and then you would be prepared. It's like a version of prepping, but it would be a massive version of prepping. And that so let me step back. You ultimately have to ask yourself, well, what is the story that you're trying to create with your life? And part of the story, and I can see different, stories, but one of the stories is that there is a parallel government, actually run by the people, that ends up emerging and really being very helpful in the world. And, it might be referred to by some of the religious people as like the kingdom of God, whatever that is. But it's so I can imagine it growing on the internet until it at some point it becomes necessary to, or maybe there's a plan that people believe in. So, for example, I would have to be able to convince my wife, so it needs to be a good enough plan that my wife, it would be comfortable with me and her and the kids going. So either it would be a hopeful plan, or stuff is so bad that, hey, there's a fear. So it's either a fear-based or a hope-based, putting that plan into action. But it can start in the online space and it can grow. And like, I'm all about trying to create some type of simulation of a real thing. So can you create government online with people who are part of some online community it's growing, it's becoming, there can be rules and processes and everything you would imagine that the perfect government should have. Maybe it embodies this idea I think it should embody this idea that there should be a space for people with different views to be able to coexist peacefully. But you would try to map this virtual interconnected web of communities existing as part of some larger entity or organization. And eventually that I would like to be able to see that emerge in real life as well. So I don't know I guess my point is, I don't know if you have to be meeting with all of your neighbors right now. But at some point the community could just come into the real world at a certain point of the time after enough people are confident and comfortable with, everything, all the relationships and the rules and the culture and, people have learned to trust it.
I get this, I see this, I'm reminded of the clip from The Simpsons where like, for whatever reason, Krusty wasn't on. And like all the kids are coming out and rubbing their eyes and seeing the sunshine. And it sounds to me like you're telling me, if we can make this other government system online work well enough, then everybody will come outside again. And that might not be what you're saying, but that's how it comes across. And like, there's this part of me that's screaming like, the people that are watching TV now don't know who represent them on their own city councils. Like,
I've heard you say this.
It's like nobody actually governments. There's no manhood. There's no civic duty. It's good enough if you go to work, come home and watch TV. That's all we expect for you. Oh, and buy things.
Have you been to the city council or watch them or anything?
No, my hypocrisy knows no bounds. So no bounds to my own hypocrisy, sir.
I get Google Calendar alerts, notifications about my city council meetings that I've always ignored, but I have gone back and watched recorded videos of them, and I don't think they don't seem valuable to me. They didn't seem like my participation would actually be helpful for the most part. So I don't know. I get your point. Like, people aren't generally I think I get your point that you would want to be involved locally. That's where you could have more power than, for example.
No, it's more that like that feels the thing you seem to be aiming at is like this is an insane fantasy to me.
Yeah.
Because we can't even get people to care about what's actually happening in their own cities, whether or not their water is fluoridated. I can't get people to care about that, much less make a new government, man. That's the angle.
So my brain does this sometimes. You brought up water, and I wrote it down in my notes. I had to mention magnesium. So I was thinking about running for office, and the stress was building up. I started getting heart palpitations. I was getting very nervous, and I love my wife. She did the research, and she found something about magnesium deficiency. And once I added magnesium to my diet, my heart palpitations went away. And I actually got to experience life without the stress that I had become used to. So you talked about, fluoride in the water, but there's something about diet. There's things that you can add to your diet as well, where you might have deficiencies that can really change your mind. It really gave me a new perspective. I had to share that just in case there's someone out there who has stress and anxiety, and they may be interested in looking up this topic of magnesium deficiency. So, yeah.
I'm glad you did, because that, like, to me, that's one of the things that we can actually do as a channel community. Yeah. Is like when we do solve problems like that, having the Discord as a place to share, like, this worked for me, guys. This helped a lot. And that as like a wisdom ball that accumulates over time. Like, there's a lot of potential there.
So one thing one thing you can do, or one idea I'd had that I've seen other YouTube channels do, is you can take a YouTube video, you can have the whole video, and then because you want to be able to have the
No,
whole
no, no.
video
Don't talk to
context.
me about making clips, sir. I have 3 interviews that aren't out yet because I have to do things. No,
Yeah.
let's Merc, bring us home. Let's wrap this up. We can talk to this guy again later. Let's bring us home tonight. What do you got?
This is where you might have some you might be able to have volunteers who help do it. So, and I don't even think you have to. It might just be it could be someone like me, that learns how to take your video and then download it onto their computer, do the editing, and upload them again. So, being able to outsource or crowdsource the editing, yeah, you don't have to do it yourself, but as a
Yeah,
community,
that's actually what I'm aiming at. We'll talk later. Merc?
Yeah, so we could wrap up on that, I guess, that like I don't know if we're a horse worth fucking putting any time or investing in, but if anyone does want to help, like I'm useless with computers, Grizz is overwhelmed with trying, but like if people wanted to help clip or improve, the other thing is we don't even quite know how to organize volunteers or anything. But we are kind of working on that. And so if people do want to help, fucking, we'll see what we can do.
yeah, maybe I'm a fan of trying to lead by example. So I can look at trying to take some of the things like that some of the ideas that I thought were the most valuable ideas and trying to get those into clips. You guys have some that I think are really good, but it's like this whole thing that we're doing. Like I told my wife's like, how long are you going to do this? I said, I'm going to do it until they want to end it. But inside of this whole video, there might be some things like, for example, the magnesium idea or the paintball church, or I think in another video, Grim's like encouraging people to give hugs. Everybody, there's a quote in a song, everybody needs to hug somebody at least once a day. There are some ideas that are practical that are good, that they're not as like grandiose as trying to create the next government that's run by the people.
This was better than I expected it to be. I think, I don't know. My spies have good eyes.